You will stand beside me as my wife, or you will bury your brother as a memory." The words came through the phone like a death sentence, and Nadia Bennett knew with absolute certainty that the life she'd built was ending. Right now, this second. With paint still wet on her fingers and afternoon light still warm on her skin, 23 years old. And Nadia thought she understood how the world worked. Work hard, create beautiful things, pay your bills, keep your head down, build something that matters, brush stroke by brush stroke. She stood in her Brooklyn studio apartment that Tuesday afternoon, brown fingers wrapped around a paintbrush loaded with cobalt blue, adding final touches to a commission that would cover next month's rent. The canvas showed a woman breaking free from chains made of gold. Beautiful chains, expensive chains, but chains nonetheless. Nadia stepped back, studying the piece with the critical eye that had earned her spots in 3 gallery showings by age 23. The woman's face, dark brown skin catching imaginary light, held defiance and exhaustion in equal measure. It was good work, honest work, the kind that made people stop and feel something uncomfortable in their chest. Her locks, tied back with a paint-stained scarf her grandmother had given her years ago, hung heavy down her back. She wore her favorite college sweatshirt, Pratt Institute, faded and soft from 100 washings. Paint smudged her cheek, paint stained her hands, paint dotted the hardwood floor beneath her feet. This was her life. Small, safe, hers. The phone buzzed on her work table, and Nadia smiled when she saw the name. Terrence, her baby brother, though at 21 he'd punch anyone who called him that. She could already hear his voice. "Yo, Nadia, you busy?" Like he always asked, even though he knew she was always painting. She picked up the phone, still holding the paintbrush in her other hand. "T, if you're calling to borrow money again." "Miss Bennett." The voice stopped her heart. Not Terrence, a man. Smooth, accented, European, maybe Italian, with the kind of dangerous calm that made every nerve in her body scream warning. Nadia's paintbrush slipped from her fingers. It hit the hardwood floor with a soft sound, rolling, leaving a streak of blue across the wood her landlord would definitely charge her for. She didn't notice. Couldn't notice anything except that voice and what it meant. Someone else had her brother's phone. "Who is this?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Where's Terrence? Put him on. Right now. Your brother is alive, Miss Bennett. For now." A pause. Deliberate. Cruel. But he's gotten himself into trouble he can't walk away from. The kind of trouble that ends with body bags and grieving mothers. The world tilted sideways. Nadia grabbed the edge of her work table, steadying herself, her heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. "What are you talking about? What trouble?" "Terrence doesn't. Your brother owes $500,000 to people who don't forgive debts." The man's voice remained eerily calm, conversational, like he was discussing the weather instead of her brother's life. People who prefer making examples over offering second chances. "Do you understand what I'm telling you, Miss Bennett? $500,000. The number was impossible. Obscene. Terrence worked retail and took community college classes. He lived with 3 roommates and ate ramen 4 nights a week. He didn't have $500,000. Nobody they knew had that kind of money. I don't..." Nadia's voice cracked. She cleared her throat, tried again. "I don't have that kind of money. I'm just an artist. I can barely afford this apartment. There's been a mistake. Terrence wouldn't." "I know exactly who you are, Nadia Laurent Bennett." The way he said her full name, the name only her mother and grandmother used, made her skin crawl with cold dread. 23 years old. Graduated magna cum laude from Pratt Institute. 3 gallery showings in the past 2 years. Your paintings currently sell for $15,000 to $20,000 each. Quite impressive for someone so young. Your piece Breaking Free, the one about generational trauma that was particularly moving. Terror crystallized in Nadia's chest, sharp and suffocating. This man had researched her, knew her accomplishments, her education, what her art sold for. Probably knew her address, her routine, where she bought coffee every morning. He'd been watching, planning, waiting. "But you're correct," he continued, that smooth voice, never-changing tone. "You cannot pay this debt. Your brother, however, has been given a lifeline. My employer has proposed an alternative arrangement." Nadia's hand tightened on the phone. "What arrangement?" "Tomorrow evening. 7 o'clock. The address is being sent to your phone as we speak." A pause. "Come alone, Miss Bennett. Bring no one. Tell no one. Your brother's life depends entirely on your cooperation and discretion. Do we understand each other?" Wait, I need to know he's okay. I need to hear his voice. The line went dead. Nadia stood frozen in her apartment, staring at her phone. A text message appeared. An address in Manhattan's financial district. Nothing else. No explanation, no reassurance, just coordinates to whatever nightmare she was about to walk into. Her hands started shaking. She called Terrence's number, straight to voicemail, called again, 19 times, counting each one, listening to his recorded voice tell her to leave a message, knowing he'd never hear it. She called his roommate, Jordan. Have you seen Terrence? Not since Friday, why? His girlfriend? They broke up last week, remember? She called his work, his study group. That guy Marcus he played basketball with on Thursdays. Nobody had seen him. 3 days. Her brother had been missing for 3 days, and she hadn't even known because she'd been so focused on finishing commissions, on making rent, on building her little life. The apartment got dark around her. Nadia sat on the floor, her back against the radiator that never worked properly, and watched her phone like it might suddenly produce answers. Like Terrence might call and say this was all a mistake, some prank, something explainable. He didn't call. She thought about their childhood. Their father leaving when she was 12 and Terrence was 10. Their mother working 2 jobs, receptionist during the day, cleaning offices at night just to keep them fed and housed. Terrence following Nadia around their grandmother's house every summer, begging her to teach him to draw, to paint, to create something beautiful out of the ugliness they lived through. She thought about Terrence at 16, working at McDonald's and the grocery store, saving money to buy her art supplies when their mother couldn't afford them. You're gonna be famous, Nadia. Somebody's gotta invest early. She thought about her mother's face already lined with too much grief, too much loss, and what it would do to her to bury her son. And she thought about the painting she'd been working on, the woman breaking free from golden chains. The irony burned like acid in her throat. Dawn broke over Brooklyn, cold and gray. Nadia hadn't moved from the floor, hadn't slept, couldn't sleep, just sat there, watching light creep across her apartment, illuminating her paintings, all those pieces about freedom and survival and breaking free. She stood slowly, her body stiff from hours on the floor, looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, dark brown eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion and unshed tears, paint still on her cheek, grandmother's gold hoops in her ears, the ones passed down through 3 generations of strong women who survived impossible things. Nadia washed her face, chose her only good dress from the closet, simple black, the one she wore to gallery openings. Spent an hour on makeup, trying to hide the exhaustion, trying to look like someone who belonged in whatever world she was about to enter. 3 trains to Manhattan. She counted the stops, tried to prepare herself for any scenario, tried to imagine what alternative arrangement could possibly mean. The address led to a restaurant that screamed money, the kind where there were no prices on the menu because if you had to ask, you didn't belong. Crystal chandeliers, hushed conversations, people who looked like they owned things, important things. Every eye turned when Nadia walked in. Young, black, out of place. She lifted her chin, straightened her spine, her grandmother's voice in her head. Don't you ever shrink yourself for nobody's comfort. You walk in like you own the room, baby girl. If they were going to judge her, let them. The maitre d' appeared at her elbow, somehow knowing exactly who she was without her saying a word. Miss Bennett, this way, please. He led her through the main dining room, more eyes tracking her, more whispers to a private area in the back. A single door, ornate, closed. Nadia stopped in front of it, took a deep breath, put her hand on the handle. This was it. The moment everything changed. She could feel it in her bones. She opened the door. The man inside rose from his chair with old-world courtesy that somehow made him more dangerous, not less. Tall, easily over 6 feet. Mid-40s, with dark hair going silver at the temples. Charcoal suit that fit him like it had been made for his body specifically. And eyes pale gray, sharp as broken glass, missing absolutely nothing. Lorenzo De Luca. She didn't know his name yet, but she knew what he was, could see it in the way he held himself, in the controlled power of his posture, in the cold assessment in those gray eyes. This was the man who held her brother's life in his hands. This was the man who was about to change everything. Miss Bennett, he said, his voice the same one from the phone. Smooth, dangerous, absolute. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. Nadia remained standing near the door, every muscle in her body coiled tight, ready to flee or fight even though she knew both options were futile. Lorenzo De Luca watched her with those pale gray eyes, and she felt stripped bare under that gaze, assessed, evaluated, judged worthy or wanting of something she didn't yet understand. "Where's my brother?" Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "Safe. I gave you my word." Lorenzo gestured to the chair across from him with a hand that bore scars across the knuckles. "Evidence of violence. Please, sit. You look like you haven't slept." She hadn't, but she wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing he'd rattled her that completely. Still, her legs were shaking, and pride wouldn't hold her up forever. She moved to the chair and sat, keeping her spine straight, her hands folded in her lap to hide their trembling. Lorenzo sat across from her, and for a long moment, he just looked at her. Really looked. His gaze traveled over her face, lingering on the gold hoops in her ears, the natural texture of her hair pulled back, the set of her jaw. Nadia forced herself not to fidget under that assessment, even though she felt like a painting being examined for flaws. "You're even more striking in person," he said finally. "I didn't come here for compliments. What do you want?" His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. Direct. "Good. I can work with that." He leaned back, perfectly at ease in a way that made Nadia's anxiety spike. "Your brother made a poor investment. Borrowed money from my organization to fund what he believed would be a lucrative pharmaceutical venture. It wasn't. Now the debt has grown, and the men he owes are not patient people. I already told you. You can't pay. I know." Lorenzo cut her off with a slight wave of his hand. "Which is why I'm offering you an alternative. Marry me, and the debt disappears. Your brother walks away clean." The words hung in the air between them, making no sense. Nadia's brain tried to process them, rearrange them into something logical. "Marry you." She said it flat, testing the words. They still sounded insane. "Yes, you've lost your mind." "I assure you, I haven't." Lorenzo's expression never changed. "I'm 47 years old, Miss Bennett. I've built an empire through strategy and execution. What I lack is a wife. At my level, in my circles, a man without a family raises questions. Questions about stability, about loyalty, about what he's hiding." He paused. "I need a wife. You need your brother to live. It's a transaction, nothing more." Nadia's laugh came out harsh and disbelieving. "A transaction? You're talking about marriage like it's a business merger, because that's exactly what it would be." Lorenzo's voice remained calm, measured. "I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to stand beside me in public, to play a role. In exchange, your brother lives, his debt vanishes, and you receive compensation that will allow you to paint for the rest of your life without worrying about rent." "This is insane." Nadia stood abruptly, the chair scraping against hardwood. "You can't just buy a person. This is America, not some... I can do whatever I want." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Lorenzo remained seated, but something in his posture shifted, became more predatory. "That's the reality you've stumbled into, Miss Bennett. I make offers. People accept them, or they suffer the consequences. I could force this. I could make demands and enforce them. Instead, I'm treating you with respect. Don't mistake that for weakness." Nadia's hands clenched into fists at her sides. "So my choices are, marry you or watch my brother die. That's not respect. That's extortion. It's survival." Lorenzo stood now, slowly, like a man who'd never had to hurry for anything. "Your brother gambled with his life and lost. I'm giving you a way to save him. Many people in your position would get no such offer. Why me?" The question burst out of her. Why not hire someone who actually wants this? Why not find some woman who'd jump at the chance to marry a... She caught herself, but Lorenzo's eyebrow rose. "A what? A criminal? A monster?" He moved closer, not threatening, but deliberate. "I'm all of those things, Miss Bennett, but I'm also a man who keeps his word. And I'm offering you this deal because you're real." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could see the faint lines around his eyes, the small scar above his left eyebrow. "You have a life, a career, friends. Our marriage will be believable because you're not someone I plucked from nowhere. And because..." He paused. And for the first time, something shifted in his expression. Something almost human. "Because I saw your work. Last year, at the Morrison Gallery. That piece about breaking generational trauma. It made me stop and stand there for 20 minutes. You have something rare, Miss Bennett. Depth, intelligence, Fire. His gray eyes locked on hers. Those are qualities I value. The admission hit Nadia harder than any threat could have. He'd seen her art, remembered it, chosen her because of it. This wasn't random. He'd been planning this. How long? Her voice came out barely above a whisper. 3 years minimum. After that, if you want out, we can discuss divorce. You'll be set for life financially. And if I say no? Lorenzo's face went completely blank. Empty. Then tomorrow, your brother's body washes up somewhere in the East River. The police will call it gang violence. Your mother gets a phone call that destroys her, and you spend every day for the rest of your life knowing you could have prevented it. Nadia closed her eyes. Behind her lids, she saw Terrence at 8 years old, following her around their grandmother's house, begging to learn to draw. Saw him at 16, working 2 jobs to help buy her art supplies after their father left. Saw her mother's face, already lined with too much grief, too much loss. When she opened her eyes, Lorenzo was watching her with that unreadable expression. If I agree, Nadia said slowly. I see Terrence first. I need proof he's alive and unharmed. Done. And he stays protected. Not just the debt-gone actual protection. If anyone touches him, he'll be under my personal protection. Lorenzo's tone held a note of something that might have been approval. Anyone who harms him answers directly to me. I want my own space. A studio. Somewhere I can work. You'll live in my home. That's not negotiable. Lorenzo's voice went firm. But I own a building in Chelsea. The top floor has excellent northern light. You can work there whenever you want. Nadia wanted to keep fighting, to push back on every single term. But she could see it in his eyes she'd gotten more than he'd planned to give. His patience was running thin. Why should I trust you'll keep your word? Lorenzo moved close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Up close, she could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated, cedar and something darker. You don't have to trust me, he said quietly. But I am, if nothing else, a man of my word. When I make a deal, I honor it. That reputation means more to me than your brother's life. He extended his hand. Do we have an agreement, Miss Bennett? Nadia stared at his offered hand. Large, scarred across the knuckles. Steady. Taking it would change everything. She'd become Mrs. Lorenzo De Luca, property of a man she didn't know, trapped in a world she'd never wanted to enter. But Terrence would live. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm, firm, surprisingly gentle. We have an agreement. Lorenzo's smile reached his eyes for the first time. Good. The wedding is in 2 weeks. My people will handle the arrangements. You'll be contacted tomorrow. 2 weeks? Her voice cracked. Unless you'd prefer it to be sooner? She shook her head, unable to speak. Then my driver will take you home. Lorenzo released her hand but didn't step back. One more thing, Miss Bennett. I know you hate me right now. That's fair. But I promise you 3 things: I will never lie to you, never raise my hand to you, and never force myself on you. Whatever this marriage becomes, it starts with that. The promises should have comforted her. Instead, they made her feel more lost than ever. The next morning, Terrence was waiting outside Nadia's building. He looked awful thinner, a healing bruise yellowing under his left eye, dark circles that spoke of sleepless nights and fear. When he saw Nadia emerge from the building entrance, his face crumpled. He pulled her into a crushing hug, and she felt him shaking against her. I'm sorry, he kept saying it, over and over into her hair, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry, Nadia. You're doing this for me, and it's done. She pulled back, gripping his shoulders hard enough to bruise. She needed him to understand, to really hear her. You're going to Philadelphia, stay with Mom, get a regular job, pay your bills, live a boring, safe life. And Terrence? Her voice went hard as steel. I'm doing this once. I will not save you again. Do you understand me? He nodded, tears streaming down his face, his body still trembling from whatever he'd been through the past 3 days. What did they do to you? Nadia asked, her hand gentle on the bruise under his eye. Nothing permanent, just enough to make me understand. Terrence's voice was hollow, haunted. Nadia, you can't marry him. He's dangerous. The things I heard, the things they said he's done, I know what he is. Nadia cut him off. And I'm doing it anyway because the alternative is burying you. So you're going to take this chance. I'm buying with my life. And you're going to do something with it. You're going to make it worth it. They stood on the Brooklyn street, early morning traffic building around them. And Terrence finally nodded. A black car pulled up Lorenzo's driver, coming to take Terrence to the train station, to Philadelphia, to safety. "I love you," Terrence said, hugging her one more time. "And I'll never forgive myself for this." "Good," Nadia replied. "Use that. Let it make you better." She watched the car drive away, watched her brother disappear into traffic, and felt something inside her crack. He was safe. That's what mattered. That's what she kept telling herself. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparations Nadia barely participated in. Lorenzo's people descended on her life like a well-dressed hurricane. A consultant named Isabella appeared the next day with a tablet full of wedding plans, speaking in rapid-fire sentences about venues and guest lists, and timelines that made Nadia's head spin. "Mr. DeLuca has selected the Greystone estate in Westchester for the ceremony," Isabella said, scrolling through photos of a property that looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. 200 guests. The dress fitting is scheduled for tomorrow at 10. Vera Wang herself will be overseeing the design. "I don't get a say in any of this?" Nadia asked. Isabella looked up from her tablet, something like sympathy flickering across her perfectly made-up face. "Mr. DeLuca wants you to be comfortable. If there's anything you particularly want or don't want, tell me now and I'll make it happen." Nadia thought about saying she didn't want any of this, didn't want the wedding or the dress or the life being constructed around her like a cage made of silk and diamonds. But what was the point? "My grandmother's earrings," she said instead. "I want to wear them. Gold hoops. They're the only thing that matters." Isabella made a note. "Of course. We'll incorporate them into your styling." The dress fitting was surreal. Vera Wang's boutique in Manhattan, with mirrors everywhere and assistants hovering with pins and fabric swatches. Nadia stood on a platform while women circled her, discussing her body like she wasn't there. "She has beautiful proportions," one said. "The brown skin will look stunning against ivory lace," another agreed. Mr. DeLuca specifically requested elegant but not overly revealing. Vera Wang herself instructed, her hands gesturing as she envisioned the dress. She should look like a bride, not a trophy. Nadia almost laughed at that. She was absolutely a trophy, just one that Lorenzo was being careful with. The dress, when they finally pinned it to her body, was beautiful. She had to admit that much. Ivory lace that somehow complemented her dark skin instead of washing her out. Form-fitting through the bodice, flowing from the waist. Elegant sleeves that covered her arms. It was the kind of dress she would have chosen for herself, if this were a real wedding, if she were marrying someone she loved. "You look beautiful," one of the assistants said softly. Nadia looked at herself in the three-way mirror. She did look beautiful. She also looked like she was about to cry. "It's perfect," she managed to say. Between fittings and planning sessions, Nadia tried to paint, tried to lose herself in her art the way she always had when life got overwhelming. But her hand wouldn't cooperate. Every stroke felt forced. Every color felt wrong. She stood in her apartment, staring at a blank canvas, and realized she didn't know how to create beauty while simultaneously mourning her freedom. Her phone rang, Lorenzo's name on the screen. She'd seen him twice since their meeting at the restaurant. Once when he'd brought Terrence to her, standing back to give them privacy, while maintaining a watchful presence. Once when he'd appeared at her apartment with the consultant, introducing Isabella and then leaving without staying. Both times he'd been polite, professional, distant. "Hello?" Nadia answered. "How are the preparations going?" Lorenzo's voice was calm, controlled, giving nothing away. "Fine. Your people are very efficient. They're your people now, too." A pause. "Isabella said you seemed overwhelmed yesterday. I'm being forced to marry a stranger in 2 weeks. Overwhelmed seems appropriate." A sound that might have been a laugh. "Fair enough. I'm calling to invite you to dinner. Tomorrow night. Just us. I thought we should talk before the wedding." "Talk about what?" "About expectations, ground rules, how this marriage will work." His tone shifted slightly, became almost gentle. "You're about to become my wife, Nadia. We should at least know each other beyond the surface." She wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain distance, keep him as the villain in her story. But he was right. If she was going to survive this marriage, she needed to understand the man she was marrying. "Where and when?" "I'll pick you up at 7. Wear something comfortable. It's not a public appearance, just dinner." He hung up before she could respond. The next evening, Nadia stood in front of her closet, trying to decide what something comfortable meant when dining with a man who forced you into marriage. She settled on dark jeans and a silk blouse nice enough to show she cared, casual enough to show she wasn't trying to impress him. Lorenzo arrived exactly at 7, driving himself instead of sending a driver. He wore dark slacks and a charcoal sweater, the most casual she'd seen him. It made him look younger, more human, more dangerous in a different way. "You look nice," he said when she opened the door. "Where are we going?" "My place. I have a chef preparing dinner." I thought privacy would be better than a restaurant for this conversation. Red flags immediately went up. "Your place? Alone?" Lorenzo's expression softened slightly. "I gave you my word, Nadia. I'm not going to hurt you or force you into anything. We're having dinner and talking. That's all. But if you're more comfortable in public..." "No." She surprised herself by cutting him off. "Privacy is fine. I needed to check. Good instincts. Keep them sharp in my world." The drive to Connecticut took an hour. Lorenzo's estate was in an exclusive area where properties sat behind gates and hedges, where privacy was maintained by distance and security. The house itself was modern architecture blended with classic Italian elements: stone, glass, dramatic angles that caught the setting sun. Security waved them through the gate. Staff waited at the entrance, a housekeeper who introduced herself as Rosa, kitchen staff. What looked like multiple security personnel trying to blend into the background. "Welcome home, Mr. DeLuca," Rosa said warmly, then turned to Nadia with a genuine smile. "And you must be Miss Bennett. Welcome." "Thank you," Nadia managed, overwhelmed by the scale of everything. Lorenzo guided her inside with a hand at the small of her back, the first time he'd touched her since that handshake in the restaurant. His touch was light, impersonal, but she felt it like electricity. The interior was stunning. Marble floors, high ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked manicured grounds. But it also felt lived in comfortable furniture, books stacked on tables, art on the walls that showed actual taste rather than just expense. "You have a Basquiat," Nadia said, stopping in front of a painting that had to be worth millions. "You recognize it," Lorenzo observed, standing beside her. "I studied his work at Pratt. This is from his early period, before he became commercially successful." She studied the chaotic lines and powerful imagery. It's about rage and beauty coexisting, about finding meaning in chaos. "That's why I bought it," Lorenzo said quietly. "Most people just see the price tag. You see what it means." Their eyes met, and for a moment, something passed between them. A recognition, a connection neither wanted to acknowledge. "Let me show you around," Lorenzo said, breaking the moment. The house tour felt surreal. Every room was beautiful, expensive, tasteful. The library made Nadia's heart ache. Floor-to-ceiling books, comfortable reading chairs, a ladder on rails to reach the higher shelves. One wall was devoted entirely to art books, including several on contemporary Black artists. "You read about art?" she asked, surprised. "I collect it." Seemed wise to understand what I was collecting. He pulled one book from the shelf. "This one has a chapter on your Morrison Gallery show. The critic called your work unflinching examination of freedom and constraint in Black female experience. They weren't wrong." Nadia took the book from him, opened it to the chapter on her show, saw her own paintings reproduced on glossy pages. "You really did see my work. I told you I don't lie." Dinner was served on a terrace overlooking the grounds. Italian food, handmade pasta, fresh bread, wine that probably cost more than Nadia's monthly rent used to be. Rosa served them with quiet efficiency, then left them alone. "So," Lorenzo said, pouring wine into both their glasses. "Ground rules. You mean the terms of my captivity?" His jaw tightened slightly. "The terms of our marriage. We can be adversaries, Nadia. Or we can be partners. One of those options will make both our lives significantly easier. Partners implies equality. This situation isn't equal." "No," he agreed. "It's not. I have the power, you have the circumstances. But we can still choose how we navigate it." He took a sip of wine, studying her over the rim of the glass. "I expect you to attend certain events with me. Business dinners, charity galas, social functions where my wife's presence is required. At these events, you'll play the role of devoted wife. In private, you can hate me all you want. How generous." He ignored the sarcasm. "You'll live in this house. You'll have freedom to come and go, but always with security. That's non-negotiable. My enemies would use you to get to me, and I won't allow that. So I'm a prisoner with a nice cage. You're my wife with protection." His eyes hardened. "There are people who would hurt you, Nadia. Badly. Just to prove they can. Just to make me suffer. The security isn't about control. It's about survival. The sincerity in his voice made her pause. You really believe that? I know that. I've seen what happens when protection fails. Something dark crossed his face. I won't let it happen to you. Why do you care? I'm just a transaction, remember? Lorenzo was quiet for a long moment, staring out at his grounds. You're my wife. That means something to me, even if it doesn't mean anything to you yet. What about the other expectation? Nadia forced herself to ask. The bedroom? His eyes came back to her, intense and unreadable. I gave you my word. I won't force you. When and if that part of our marriage happens, it will be because you choose it. And if I never choose it, then I'll be a very disciplined husband. A slight smile. But I don't think that will be the case. Pretty confident. Realistic. There's attraction between us, Nadia. I feel it. You feel it. We're both adults. Eventually, that attraction will overcome the circumstances. He leaned back in his chair. But I can wait. I'm patient when something matters. Nadia wanted to argue, to deny the attraction he claimed existed, but she couldn't. She'd felt it in the restaurant when he'd stood close, felt it in the car when his hand touched her back, felt it now, sitting across from him in the candlelight, watching the way shadows played across his face. I hate that you're right, she admitted. I know. Add it to the list of things you hate about me. They finished dinner talking about safer topics, art, books, Nadia's education. Lorenzo was surprisingly well-read, insightful about culture and history in ways that made Nadia forget, for moments at a time, that this was a forced situation. I should get you home, Lorenzo said finally, checking his watch. It's late. The drive back to Brooklyn was quiet, comfortable, almost. When they pulled up outside her building, Lorenzo turned off the engine. 2 more days, he said. Then you'll never have to live in this apartment again. It's my home. Was your home. Now your home is with me. He reached across, his hand covering hers where it rested on her lap. I know you're scared. I know this isn't what you wanted. But I promise you, Nadia, I will take care of you. In my own way, on my own terms. But I will take care of you. She looked down at his hand on hers, large, scarred, warm. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to be honest. That's all I can give you right now. Nadia pulled her hand away, opened the car door. Good night, Lorenzo. Good night, wife. The word sent a shiver down her spine. 2 days later, she would speak vows she didn't mean to a man she was learning to understand despite herself. And her life as Nadia Bennett would end. The morning of the wedding, Nadia woke in her Brooklyn apartment for the last time. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling with its water stain shaped like a bird, listening to the sounds of the city waking up outside her window, her neighbor's alarm going off. Traffic building on the street below, the coffee shop on the corner raising its metal shutters, sounds that had been her soundtrack for 2 years. After today, she'd wake up in Connecticut, in Lorenzo's house, in Lorenzo's bed maybe, depending on how this all played out. Mrs. Continue. 10:32 p.m. Lorenzo DeLuca. The name felt foreign in her mouth. Wrong. Like trying on someone else's skin. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Her mother. Morning, baby, big day, you excited? Nadia forced enthusiasm into her voice. Hey, Mom. Yeah, it's finally here. I still can't believe my baby's getting married. To such a successful man, too. Her mother's voice held so much pride, so much hope. Your grandmother would be so proud. Marrying a man who can take care of you, who appreciates your art. That's all she ever wanted for you. Guilt twisted in Nadia's chest. The lies were getting easier, which somehow made them worse. I wish she could be here. She is, baby. She's watching. I know it. A pause. You sure about this? It's not too late if you're having doubts. Wedding jitters are normal, but if this doesn't feel right, it's right, Mom. The lie came out smooth, practiced. Lorenzo is. He's good to me. I'm happy. After they hung up, Nadia sat on the edge of her bed and let herself cry. Just for a few minutes. Just enough to release the pressure building in her chest. Then she washed her face, straightened her spine, and prepared to become someone's wife. Lorenzo's people arrived at 9. Isabella with her tablet and her team of stylists, transforming Nadia's small apartment into a preparation station. Hair, makeup, nails, all done with precision and care. Mr. DeLuca wanted to make sure you had your grandmother's earrings, Isabella said, handing Nadia a small velvet box. Inside were her grandmother's gold hoops. but they'd been cleaned, polished, made to shine like new while keeping their worn, loved character. Nadia's eyes burned with tears. He had them professionally cleaned and checked by a jeweler, Isabella explained softly, to make sure they were secure enough to wear. He didn't want you to lose them. It was a thoughtful gesture, too thoughtful. It made Lorenzo harder to hate, harder to keep at a distance. That was probably the point. The dress came next. Vera Wang herself supervised as they helped Nadia into the ivory lace creation. It fit perfectly, highlighting her figure while maintaining elegance. When they finally let her see herself in the mirror, Nadia barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked beautiful, sophisticated, expensive. Everything she wasn't supposed to be. "You're a vision," Isabella said, genuine warmth in her voice. "Mr. DeLuca is going to lose his mind when he sees you." Nadia touched the gold hoops in her ears, her only connection to who she really was beneath all this silk and lace. The drive to Westchester felt both too long and too short. Nadia sat in the back of the car, careful not to wrinkle her dress, watching New York give way to Connecticut suburbs, then to the exclusive area where the Greystone estate waited. The venue was stunning. A historic property with manicured grounds, stone buildings covered in ivy, gardens in full bloom. 200 guests mingled on the lawn, people Nadia had never met. Never would have met if not for this forced circumstance. She was escorted to a private room to wait. Rosa appeared with water, with tissues, with gentle words. "You look beautiful, dear," the older woman said. "Mr. DeLuca is very lucky." "Is he here?" Nadia asked. "In another room, preparing. Very traditional, he insisted on not seeing you before the ceremony." Rosa smiled. "He's nervous. I've never seen him nervous before." The idea of Lorenzo DeLuca being nervous seemed impossible. But Nadia didn't have time to process it because suddenly Isabella was back, saying it was time, leading her to the entrance of the ceremony space. Classical music played, expensive, impersonal, chosen by someone else. Nadia stood at the entrance, bouquet of white roses and calla lilies in her hands, looking down an aisle lined with people who didn't know her. Her mother sat in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Terence beside her, looking uncomfortable in a suit Lorenzo had sent him. He caught Nadia's eye and mouthed, "I'm sorry." She shook her head slightly. This wasn't his fault anymore. This was her choice, made for him, but still her choice. And at the end of the aisle, Lorenzo waited. He wore a charcoal gray suit with an ice blue tie that somehow made his gray eyes even more intense. His posture was perfect, his expression carefully controlled. But when Nadia started walking toward him, something flickered across his face. Not just satisfaction, not just possession. Something deeper, more complicated. Something that looked almost like wonder. She walked toward him alone, no father to give her away because Lorenzo had refused. "He doesn't get to give away what he already sold," he'd said. So Nadia walked herself down the aisle, head high, spine straight, channeling every ounce of her grandmother's strength. When she reached Lorenzo, he extended his hand. She took it, his fingers warm and steady around hers. "You're breathtaking," he whispered, quiet enough that only she could hear. "Don't," she whispered back. "Not today." Something in his eyes softened. "All right." The officiant began the ceremony. Nadia heard the words distantly, as though they were happening to someone else. "Love, honor, cherish, in sickness and in health, till death do us part." All lies, beautiful, traditional lies that everyone in attendance believed except the two people speaking them. When it came time for Lorenzo's vows, he turned to face her fully, his hands holding hers, his eyes locked on hers. "I, Lorenzo DeLuca, take you, Nadia Bennett, to be my wife. I promise to protect you, to honor you, to give you every opportunity to pursue your art and your dreams. I promise to be honest with you, to respect the boundaries we've established, and to make your life as comfortable as possible within the constraints of my world." They weren't romantic vows. They were practical, honest ones. Acknowledgement of their reality. But they were sincere, and somehow that made them more powerful than poetry would have been. Nadia's turn. She took a breath, steadied herself, and spoke clearly. "I, Nadia Bennett, take you, Lorenzo DeLuca, to be my husband. I promise to fulfill the obligations we've agreed upon, to stand beside you as your wife, and to approach this marriage with as much honesty and grace as I can manage." She couldn't promise love, couldn't promise devotion, but she could promise effort. That would have to be enough. The rings came next. Lorenzo's was simple platinum, classic and understated. Nadia's was a massive diamond surrounded by smaller stones, beautiful, expensive, impossible to miss. When Lorenzo slid it onto her finger, she felt the weight of it like a claim. "You may kiss the bride." Lorenzo's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. He gave her a moment to pull away, to refuse. She didn't. The kiss was soft at first, almost tentative. Then his other hand came to her waist, pulling her closer, and the kiss deepened. Not aggressive, but claiming, showing everyone in attendance that she was his. Nadia's body betrayed her, responding to the kiss, to his touch, to the heat building between them despite everything. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing harder. "Mine," he whispered against her lips. "Yours," she agreed, because it was true now. Legally, publicly, completely. Applause erupted around them. They turned to face the guests, as the officiant announced them as Mr. and Mrs. Lorenzo De Luca. Nadia's old life was over. Mrs. De Luca's life had begun. The reception was held in a grand ballroom that had been transformed into something magical: candlelight, flowers, elegance that spoke of unlimited budget and impeccable taste. Nadia moved through it in a daze, smiling for photos, accepting congratulations from strangers, playing the role of happy bride. Lorenzo stayed close, his hand at her back, his presence protective. When men's eyes lingered too long, his grip tightened. When women asked invasive questions, he smoothly redirected the conversation. He was managing the situation, managing her exposure to his world. Their first dance was to music Nadia didn't recognize. Lorenzo pulled her close, one hand at her waist, the other holding her hand against his chest. "You're doing well," he murmured as they swayed. "I'm performing well," she corrected. "Same thing in this world." His eyes searched her face. "How are you really?" Terrified, angry, resigned. She met his gaze. "But I'm here. That's what matters, right?" "It matters." His hand at her waist pulled her infinitesimally closer. "And for what it's worth, Nadia, I know what this cost you. I won't forget that. Will you make it worth it?" "I'll try." The reception continued, Kate cutting Lorenzo's hand over hers on the knife, an intimate gesture that felt like performance. Toasts from people who didn't know them, dancing with strangers who wanted to assess Lorenzo's new wife up close. One man older, drunk, handsy, let his hand slide too low on Nadia's waist when Lorenzo's attention was elsewhere. Before Nadia could react, Lorenzo was there, his hand gripping the man's wrist hard enough to make him wince. "Touch my wife again," Lorenzo said quietly, his voice deadly calm. "And you'll lose the hand." The man paled, stammered apologies, disappeared into the crowd. "Thank you," Nadia said, surprised by his immediate protection. "You're mine to protect now." Lorenzo's eyes scanned the crowd, assessing threats. "No one disrespects you. Ever." As the evening wore on, Nadia found herself exhausted emotionally, physically, spiritually drained. Lorenzo seemed to sense it because he appeared at her side with an exit strategy. "We're leaving," he announced to those nearby. "My wife is tired." "But the reception," someone protested, "is over for us." Lorenzo's tone left no room for argument. They said goodbye to Nadia's mother, who hugged her tight and whispered, "Be happy, baby. You deserve happiness. More guilt, more lies by omission." The car waiting outside was different from earlier, a vintage Rolls-Royce with "Just Married" written on the back window, tin cans trailing behind. Someone's idea of tradition. Nadia slid into the back seat, her dress pooling around her like foam. Lorenzo beside her, suddenly close in the enclosed space. "Where are we going?" she asked as the car pulled away. "Home," Lorenzo said simply. His home, now hers, their home. The word felt foreign. The drive to Connecticut was quiet. Lorenzo didn't push for conversation, didn't demand attention, just sat beside her in the darkness, his presence solid and undeniable. When they finally reached the estate, Lorenzo helped her out of the car, his hand steadying her as she navigated her dress. Staff had left lights on, a welcoming glow that made the house look less intimidating than it had before. "Welcome home, Mrs. De Luca," Lorenzo said, and Nadia realized with a shock that this was real. This was her life now. She'd married a stranger to save her brother, and now she had to figure out how to survive the consequences. Lorenzo's hand found the small of her back, guiding her inside. "Are you hungry? Tired?" "Rosa left food if you want it. I'm exhausted. Then let me show you to our room." Our room. The reality of what that meant made Nadia's heart race. Lorenzo seemed to sense her panic because he stopped halfway up the stairs. "Nadia, look at me." She did. "I gave you my word. Nothing happens tonight that you don't want to happen. I'll take the guest room if that makes you more comfortable. And if I want you to stay?" The question surprised them both. Lorenzo's eyes darkened. "Then I stay. But we take this at your pace. Always your pace." Nadia thought about it. About the fact that she was married now, that this man was her husband whether she liked it or not. About the way he'd protected her tonight, the way he'd kept his promises so far. About the way her body responded to his proximity despite her mind's reservations. "Stay," she said quietly. "But just stay. Nothing else tonight." "All right." He led her upstairs to the master suite, the room she'd seen briefly during the tour. Enormous bedroom, California king bed, attached bathroom, walk-in closet, everything expensive and elegant and foreign. "Rosa set out something for you to change into," Lorenzo said, gesturing to the bathroom. "Take your time." Nadia escaped into the bathroom, grateful for a moment alone. The nightgown Rosa had left was silk, ivory, elegant without being overtly seductive. She took down her hair, removed her makeup, stood in front of the mirror in this stranger's bathroom and tried to recognize herself. When she emerged, Lorenzo was by the window, jacket off, tie loosened, looking out at the grounds. He'd removed his shoes and rolled up his shirt sleeves, making him look more human, more accessible. "Better?" he asked, turning. "Weird," she admitted. "All of this is weird. It'll get less weird." He moved toward the bed, his movements careful, non-threatening. "Come on, you're exhausted. Sleep." They climbed into opposite sides of the massive bed, so much space between them they might as well have been in separate rooms. Lorenzo turned off the light, plunging them into darkness. "Good night, wife," he said softly. "Good night, husband." Nadia lay in the darkness, listening to Lorenzo's breathing slowly even out as he fell asleep. She should have felt trapped, terrified, overwhelmed. Instead, she felt oddly safe, and that terrified her more than anything else. Nadia woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and a moment of complete disorientation. Expensive sheets, enormous bedroom, the faint sound of birds outside. This wasn't her apartment. This wasn't her life. Then memory crashed back: the wedding, the vows, Lorenzo's hand in hers, and reality settled over her like a weight. She was married. This was real. She turned her head on the pillow and found the other side of the bed empty, sheets cool to the touch. Lorenzo had already gotten up. She didn't know if she felt relieved or disappointed. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. later than she'd slept in years. But then again, yesterday had been emotionally exhausting in ways she was still processing. Nadia sat up, pushing her hair back from her face. The nightgown she'd worn to bed, ivory silk, that Rosa had left for her, had twisted during the night. She straightened it and padded barefoot to the bathroom. The space was massive marble everywhere. Soaking tub, separate shower with multiple heads, double vanity. On one side, Lorenzo's things, expensive cologne, razor, the basic necessities of a man who didn't need much. On the other side, someone had arranged toiletries for her. High-end skincare, makeup, hair care products for textured hair, another thoughtful detail. Another reminder that Lorenzo had planned this down to the smallest detail. Nadia showered, letting hot water wash away the residue of yesterday. When she emerged, wrapped in a plush robe, she found the walk-in closet and realized with a shock that one entire side was filled with clothes in her size. Jeans, blouses, dresses, casual wear, formal wear, workout clothes, everything she could possibly need, all with tags still attached. She chose jeans and a simple sweater, comfortable, her style, even if someone else had purchased them. Put on her grandmother's earrings, looked at herself in the mirror and tried to see Mrs. Lorenzo DeLuca instead of Nadia Bennett. The image wouldn't quite resolve. Downstairs, she followed the smell of coffee to the kitchen, a massive space with professional-grade equipment and marble countertops. Rosa was there, arranging fresh flowers in a vase, and her face lit up when she saw Nadia. "Good morning, Mrs. DeLuca. Did you sleep well?" The name still felt foreign. "Yes, thank you. Where's Lorenzo?" "Mr. DeLuca is in his office. He said to let you sleep, that you needed rest after yesterday." Rosa moved to pour coffee into an expensive mug. "He asked that you join him when you're ready. No rush. Are you hungry? I can make you anything you'd like." Nadia accepted the coffee gratefully. "Just toast is fine. Thank you, Rosa." "Nonsense. You need proper breakfast. Rosa was already pulling out eggs, fruit, pastries. Mr. DeLuca was very specific that you should eat well, rest well, have everything you need. As Rosa prepared food, chattering about the house and the staff and the property, Nadia found herself relaxing slightly. The older woman's warmth felt genuine, uncomplicated by the circumstances that had brought Nadia here. How long have you worked for Lorenzo? Nadia asked. 15 years. Since before Mr. DeLuca's first wife passed. Rosa's expression softened. He's a good man, Mrs. DeLuca. Demanding, yes. His world is complicated and sometimes dark. But he's fair, he keeps his word, and he takes care of those who matter to him. His first wife? Nadia hadn't known Lorenzo had been married before. Died 12 years ago. Cancer. They were very young when they married, arranged by families. You understand? She was kind. He was devoted. Her death changed him. Rosa set a plate of food in front of Nadia. But I see something in how he looks at you that I haven't seen since then. Hope, maybe. The possibility of something real. Nadia didn't know what to do with that information. Lorenzo had been married before, had loved before, had lost that love and built walls that maybe Nadia was supposed to breach. After breakfast, she found her way to Lorenzo's office, a room she vaguely remembered from the tour. The door was ajar, and she could hear his voice speaking Italian, tone clipped and authoritative. She knocked softly. The Italian stopped mid-sentence. Come in. Lorenzo sat behind a massive mahogany desk, covered in papers, laptop open, phone in hand. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking every bit the powerful businessman he was. When he saw Nadia, something in his expression shifted, softened slightly. Nadia, good morning. He ended the call without explanation. You look rested. I am. Thank you for letting me sleep. You needed it. He stood, moving around the desk. How are you feeling? About everything. Nadia considered lying, then remembered his promise about honesty. Disoriented. Overwhelmed. Like I woke up in someone else's life. You did, in a way. Lorenzo leaned against the desk, studying her. But it's your life now, and we need to discuss how it's going to work. More rules? Practical realities. He gestured to one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Sit, please. Nadia sat, coffee still in hand, and waited. Lorenzo remained standing, which gave him the psychological advantage of height, probably intentional. You're free to move around the house and grounds as you wish. The staff is here to help you with anything you need. Rosa runs the household if you want something changed, done differently, tell her. So I'm not a complete prisoner. You're not a prisoner at all. His tone hardened slightly. But there are security concerns we need to address. You can't leave the property without Marco or one of the security team accompanying you. So I am a prisoner. You're protected. Lorenzo moved closer, his eyes intent on hers. I need you to understand something, Nadia. I have enemies. Dangerous people who would hurt you to hurt me. Rival organizations, business competitors, people I've crossed over the years. If any of them discovered you were unprotected, they'd use me against you. They'd torture you to make me cooperate, then kill you to make a point. The bluntness of his words made Nadia flinch. I won't let that happen. So yes, you'll have security. Always. That's non-negotiable. Nadia processed this. The danger was real, she'd understood that intellectually, but Lorenzo's stark assessment made it visceral. What about my studio? You promised me space to work. I did. Lorenzo pulled out his phone, showed her photos. The Chelsea building, top floor. I had it prepared while the wedding was being arranged. Professional equipment, excellent light, secure entrance. Marco will drive you there whenever you want to work. The space in the photos was beautiful, exactly what she would have designed for herself if she had unlimited resources. Exposed brick, enormous windows, organized supplies, room to create. When can I go? Today, if you want. But first I need to introduce you to your security detail properly. Lorenzo moved to the office door, opened it. Marco, come in. The man who entered was maybe 35, with the bearing of someone military trained, respectful but assessing, taking in Nadia with professional interest. Mrs. DeLuca, this is Marco Rossi. He'll be your primary security. Marco extended his hand. Ma'am, my job is to keep you safe while interfering with your life as little as possible. Nadia shook his hand. How exactly does that work? I follow at a distance, stay aware of surroundings, handle threats before they reach you. Marco's expression was serious. Mr. DeLuca has been very clear you're to be protected without feeling smothered. But you need to understand the rules. More rules, Nadia muttered. Necessary ones, Lorenzo corrected. Marco, explain. Marco pulled out a phone top of the line, clearly new. This is for you. It has a panic button app, one touch, and I'm alerted immediately. It also has GPS tracking before you object. That's so we can find you if something goes wrong. You're tracking me. We're protecting you, Lorenzo said firmly. There's a difference. You want freedom of movement? This is the price. Nadia took the phone, feeling its weight. Another leash, however necessary it might be. What else? You don't go anywhere without informing Marco first, Lorenzo continued. Not because we're controlling you, but because he needs to assess security before you arrive. You don't discuss my business with anyone outside this house. You don't share information about my schedule, my associates, my operations. I don't know anything about your operations, and we'll keep it that way. Lorenzo's expression was unreadable. The less you know, the safer you are. They spent an hour going over protocols, emergency procedures, what to do in various scenarios. By the end, Nadia felt like she was being trained for witness protection rather than married life. I know this is overwhelming, Lorenzo said when Marco finally left, but it's all necessary. When does it stop feeling like a prison? Nadia asked quietly. Lorenzo moved closer, his hand coming up to touch her face gently. When you stop seeing it as one. When you realize everything I'm doing is to keep you alive. Is that supposed to be romantic? It's supposed to be honest. His thumb brushed her cheek. I'm not romantic, Nadia. I'm practical. I protect what's mine, and you're mine now. The possessiveness should have bothered her. Instead, she felt a flutter of something in her stomach that she refused to name. Can I go to the studio now? She asked, needing distance from his intensity. Of course. Lorenzo stepped back, releasing her. Marco will drive you. Take as long as you need. Create something beautiful. The Chelsea studio was everything Lorenzo had promised. Nadia stood in the center of the loft space, turning slowly, taking in the enormous windows that flooded the room with perfect northern light. Exposed brick walls, hardwood floors, professional easels set up and ready, a corner with a comfortable sitting area couch, coffee station, sound system. Everything she could possibly need to work. This is incredible, she breathed. Marco stood by the door, giving her space. Mr. DeLuca had it set up over the past 2 weeks, consulted with art professionals to make sure he got it right. More evidence of Lorenzo's attention to detail, more reminders that he'd planned this carefully, thoughtfully, in ways that made him harder to hate. Nadia moved to the supplies, every type of paint imaginable, brushes ranging from tiny detail work to large sweeping strokes, canvases in every size. She touched them reverently, artist's fingers recognizing quality. I'll be downstairs, Marco said. There's a panic button by the door and another by the windows. If you need anything, call. After he left, Nadia stood alone in her new studio and let herself feel everything she'd been holding back. Grief for her lost freedom, anger at the circumstances, fear about the future, and underneath it all, a confusing thread of gratitude toward Lorenzo for giving her this space. She moved to an easel, selected a large canvas, chose paints instinctively. Her hands knew what to do, even when her mind was chaos. She painted for hours, losing herself in color and movement and the physical act of creation. The piece that emerged was raw and complicated, a woman in a beautiful cage, but she was painting the bars gold, transforming them into something almost beautiful. It was late afternoon when Nadia finally stepped back, exhausted and paint-covered and more herself than she'd felt in weeks. Her phone buzzed. Lorenzo, how's the studio? Perfect. Thank you. Will you be home for dinner? Home. The word still felt strange, but she typed back, yes. That night established their pattern. Dinners together, sometimes tense, sometimes surprisingly comfortable. Lorenzo asking about her work, genuinely interested in what she was creating. Nadia asking careful questions about his legitimate businesses, staying away from the dangerous parts. They slept in the same bed but with space between them. Lorenzo never pushed, never pressured, just his presence, solid and undeniable, a few feet away in the darkness. Days passed, then weeks. Nadia fell into a routine. Mornings at home, afternoons at the studio, evenings with Lorenzo. She painted new pieces for an upcoming show. She learned the rhythms of the house, befriended Rosa, tolerated Marco's constant presence. And slowly, gradually, she stopped thinking of herself as Nadia Bennett, captive bride, started thinking of herself as Nadia DeLuca, complicated wife. The transformation terrified her more than the original capture ever had. 6 weeks into the marriage, Lorenzo announced they would be attending a charity gala in Manhattan, their first major public appearance as a married couple beyond the wedding itself. "It's important," Lorenzo explained over dinner. "Major donors, political connections, people who need to see us together as a united front. More performance. That's what marriage in my world is. Performance and power." His eyes met hers across the table. "But we're getting better at it. The performance is becoming more natural." He was right. They'd developed an ease with each other that Nadia hadn't expected. Small touches that no longer felt foreign. Conversations that went beyond surface pleasantries. Moments where she forgot, briefly, that this wasn't a real marriage. The night of the gala, stylists came to the house. Nadia was dressed in an emerald green gown that hugged her curves elegantly, her locks styled in a sophisticated updo, makeup dramatic and perfect. When she looked in the mirror, she saw power and beauty and expensive confidence. She saw Mrs. Lorenzo DeLuca. Lorenzo wore a tuxedo that made him look devastating. When he saw Nadia descending the stairs, he went completely still. "You're stunning," he said, and his voice held something raw, unguarded. "Thank you." He offered his arm. She took it. They walked to the car together, and Nadia realized they looked like a real couple, felt like a real couple. The gala was held in a Manhattan hotel ballroom, crystal chandeliers, champagne flowing, wealthy people in expensive clothes making expensive conversation. Lorenzo's hand stayed at Nadia's back the entire time, proprietary and protective. They moved through the crowd, Lorenzo introducing her to businessmen, politicians, other organization heads. Everyone was polite to her face, but Nadia could feel their assessment, judging if she was worthy of Lorenzo DeLuca, if she was weakness or strength, if she belonged in this world. One woman, Isabella, elegant and cold, studied Nadia with particular intensity. How unexpected. Lorenzo never mentioned looking for a wife. "Life is full of surprises," Nadia replied smoothly, channeling the confidence Lorenzo had been teaching her. "Indeed." Isabella's eyes traveled over her. "You're quite young, and so, different from his first wife." The comment was designed to undermine, to make Nadia feel like an interloper. Before she could respond, Lorenzo's hand tightened on her waist. "Nadia is exactly what I wanted," he said, his voice cold. "Different is the point." They moved away, and Lorenzo leaned down to whisper in her ear. "You did well. Isabella is a shark. Most people crumble under her assessment." "I paint hungry people for a living," Nadia whispered back. "I know how to handle sharks." Lorenzo's quiet laugh sent warmth through her chest. Later in the evening, an older man, drunk and too friendly, let his hand wander too low on Nadia's waist while they were talking. Before she could react, Lorenzo was there, his hand gripping the man's wrist with obvious force. "Touch my wife again," Lorenzo said quietly, his voice deadly calm, "and you'll lose the hand. Are we clear?" The man paled, stammered apologies, and disappeared into the crowd. Nadia should have been embarrassed by the scene. Instead, she felt protected, valued, like Lorenzo's possessiveness was about her worth, not just his pride. "Thank you," she said. Lorenzo's eyes were dark when they met hers. "You're mine. No one disrespects what's mine." The ride home was quiet, charged with something neither of them named. When they reached the house, Lorenzo walked Nadia to their bedroom door, a gesture he'd been doing nightly, giving her space to make the choice. "You were perfect tonight," he said softly. "Every bit the wife I needed." "Was I what you wanted?" Nadia asked, surprising herself with the question. Lorenzo's eyes searched her face. "You're becoming what I want, more every day." He started to turn away, to give her space as usual. Nadia's hand caught his. "Stay," she said. "Really stay. Not just in the same room." Lorenzo went still. "Nadia, are you sure?" "No, but I want you anyway." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her lips. "This changes everything. I know." He kissed her, then hungry and controlled and claiming all at once. Nadia kissed back, her hands fisting in his tuxedo jacket, pulling him closer. They made it to the bedroom. The door closed, and lines that had been carefully maintained for 6 weeks finally dissolved. Lorenzo made love to her with the same focused intensity he brought to everything else. patient and thorough and determined to prove that this was more than transaction. Nadia responded with equal intensity, her body surrendering even as her mind struggled to catch up. Afterward, lying tangled in expensive sheets, both breathing hard, reality settled over them. "This complicates things," Nadia said quietly. "Everything about us is complicated." Lorenzo's hand traced patterns on her back. "But I'm not letting you retreat now. You're in this with me. I was always in this with you. I just wasn't admitting it." His arms tightened around her. "Then stop fighting it. Let this be real." Nadia closed her eyes, feeling the solid warmth of him beneath her, and realized she'd already stopped fighting weeks ago. She'd just been too afraid to admit it. Morning came with sunlight, and the realization that everything had changed. Nadia woke wrapped in Lorenzo's arms, her head on his chest, their bodies tangled together in ways that spoke of intimacy and trust. For a moment, she let herself exist in the warmth and safety of it. Then reality crashed back and she tensed. Lorenzo felt the change immediately. His hand stroked her back gently. Don't what? Don't start building walls again." His voice was rough with sleep. "We crossed a line last night. Don't retreat because you're scared of what it means." Nadia pulled back enough to look at his face. Morning light caught the silver in his hair, made his gray eyes warmer than usual. He looked younger like this, vulnerable, almost. "I don't know what it means," she admitted. "It means we're partners now, in every way." His hand came up to cup her face. "It means I'm not letting you sleep in the guest room anymore. It means this marriage is becoming real, whether we planned it that way or not. Is that what you want?" "What I want is you. Willingly. Completely." His thumb brushed her cheek. "I'm getting that. So yes, this is what I want." Before Nadia could respond, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. Lorenzo's expression immediately shifted from intimate to business as he reached for it. "I need to take this," he said, already getting out of bed. "Stay. I'll be back." He disappeared into the bathroom, and Nadia heard his voice speaking rapid Italian. Whatever the call was about, it was serious. She lay in bed, processing everything. She'd slept with Lorenzo. Not because she was forced to, but because she wanted to. Because somewhere in the past 6 weeks, he'd stopped being her captor and started being... what? Her husband? Her partner? Her choice? Lorenzo emerged 20 minutes later, already dressed in slacks and a button-down, his hair damp from the shower. "I have to go into the city. Business that can continue. 10:40 p.m. Wait. Dangerous business?" His pause answered the question. "Nothing for you to worry about. Marco will be here if you need anything." "Lorenzo." Nadia sat up, sheet wrapped around her. "If we're partners now, really partners, then don't lie to me about the danger." Something flickered in his eyes, respect, maybe, or concern. He came back to the bed, sat on the edge. "There's a situation with one of my competitors. Nothing imminent, but it needs handling. I'll be back by dinner. Be careful. Always." He leaned in, kissed her forehead. "Paint something beautiful today. I'll want to hear about it tonight." After he left, Nadia showered and dressed, trying to process the shift in her reality. She found Rosa in the kitchen, already preparing breakfast, and the older woman's knowing smile made Nadia blush. "Good morning, Mrs. DeLuca. You look happy." "Do I?" "You do." Rosa set down coffee and pastries. "Mr. DeLuca, too. He was almost smiling when he left. That's rare." Nadia sipped her coffee, thinking about Lorenzo's promise that this was becoming real. "Rosa, what happened to his first wife? You mentioned her yesterday." Rosa's expression softened with old sadness. "Sophia. She was beautiful, kind. They married young, arranged by their families. You understand how it is in our world. But they grew to love each other. When she got sick..." Rosa shook her head. "Mr. DeLuca was devoted. Did everything money could buy. But cancer doesn't care about money. She died 12 years ago. And he never remarried. Until now." He closed himself off after. Built walls, focused on business, became harder. Rosa studied Nadia. "But with you, I see something different. Not softer exactly, but open, like maybe he's letting himself hope again." The weight of that expectation settled on Nadia's shoulders. "I'm not here to fix him. No. But maybe you're here to help him remember how to live instead of just survive." Later that morning, Marco drove Nadia to the Chelsea studio. She was working on a new series, Evolution of Captivity. She'd titled it privately pieces that explored how constraint could transform into choice, how chains could become bridges. She was deep in the work, covered in paint, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Then something made her pick up. Hello? Nadia DeLuca. A man's voice, unfamiliar, with an accent she couldn't place. We should talk. Ice flooded her veins. Who is this? Someone with your best interests at heart. Your husband has enemies, Mrs. DeLuca. Dangerous ones. And you're exposed. If you have something to say, say it. Tonight, 9 p.m. There's a cafe on the corner of your building. Come alone. I have information you need. I'm not meeting a stranger. Then stay ignorant. But when something happens to you, remember you had the chance to protect yourself. The line went dead. Nadia stared at her phone, heart racing. This was a threat. Had to be. Lorenzo had warned her about this people using her to get to him. She should call Marco immediately. Should tell Lorenzo. Should follow the protocols they'd established. But something in the man's voice had sounded almost genuine, concerned even. What if there was real danger Lorenzo wasn't telling her about? What if this person actually had information she needed? Nadia looked at the clock. 3 p.m. She had 6 hours to decide. By 8:30 that night, she'd made her choice. She told Marco she was tired, wanted to go home early. He drove her back to the Connecticut estate without question. Then she waited until the house was quiet, until she was sure Marco thought she was in bed, and she slipped out through the garden door she'd noticed weeks ago. Her heart hammered as she made her way to where she'd seen one of the staff members park her car earlier, an older sedan with keys left in it. Nadia had never stolen anything in her life, but she was doing it now, justifying it with the thought that she'd return it in a few hours. The drive back to Manhattan took an hour, her hands sweating on the wheel the entire time. This was stupid, reckless, exactly what Lorenzo had told her not to do. But if there was real danger, she needed to know. The cafe was small, nondescript, the kind of place that served coffee and didn't ask questions. Nadia sat at a corner table, hood pulled up, trying to be invisible. At 9 exactly, a man slid into the seat across from her. He was maybe 40, with sharp features and eyes that had seen too much. Not threatening exactly, but dangerous in a different way than Lorenzo. Mrs. DeLuca, thank you for coming. You have 5 minutes, then I'm leaving. Direct. Good. He pushed a manila envelope across the table. Your husband is planning something. Something that will put you directly in danger. These are the details. Nadia didn't touch the envelope. Why would you tell me this? Who are you? Someone who doesn't believe innocent people should be collateral damage. His eyes met hers. Lorenzo DeLuca is a dangerous man. I think you know that. What you might not know is that he's using you as bait. That's a lie. Is it? Ask yourself, why would he marry you so publicly? Why make sure everyone knows about his young, beautiful, vulnerable wife? The man leaned forward. He's drawing out his enemies, making them think you're his weakness. And when they come for you, he'll use you to destroy them. You're lying, Nadia repeated, but her voice wavered. Read the documents. Make up your own mind. He stood. But do it quickly, because the attack is coming, Mrs. DeLuca, and you're the target. He left before Nadia could respond. She sat frozen, staring at the envelope. Every instinct screamed that this was manipulation, but doubt crept in like poison. Lorenzo had married her quickly, publicly, had insisted on security but also on her visibility, had brought her to that gala, introduced her to everyone, made sure his enemies knew exactly who she was. What if this man was right? Nadia grabbed the envelope and left the cafe. She made it 2 blocks before a hand caught her arm. Marco. His face was furious. What the hell were you thinking? How did you... GPS in your phone, remember? I've been tracking you since you left the house. He grabbed the envelope from her hands. Who gave you this? I don't know, he said. He said exactly what he was supposed to say to make you doubt Mr. DeLuca. Marco's voice was tight with controlled anger. This is textbook psychological warfare, and you fell for it. Nadia's stomach dropped. It was a trap. It was reconnaissance. They wanted to see if you'd break protocol, if you'd doubt your husband, if you'd be stupid enough to meet a stranger alone. Marco pulled out his phone. I have to call Mr. DeLuca. Marco, please. No. You don't understand what you just did. His eyes were hard. You exposed yourself, put yourself in danger, proved to his enemies that you're exactly the weakness they thought you were. Lorenzo arrived at the house 40 minutes later, and Nadia had never seen him so angry. He didn't yell. That would have been easier. Instead, he stood in his office, jaw tight, eyes cold, looking at her like she was a stranger. "Explain," he said flatly. Nadia told him everything: the call, the man's claims, her decision to go. With each word, Lorenzo's expression grew harder. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "You think I'm using you as bait," he said finally. "I don't know what to think," he said. "He said exactly what would make you doubt me, make you act recklessly. And it worked." Lorenzo moved closer, his presence overwhelming. "Do you know what could have happened tonight? That man could have grabbed you, could have hurt you, could have used you to destroy everything I've built. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this." His voice cracked with fury. "I've spent 6 weeks keeping you safe, teaching you the rules, protecting you from people who would tear you apart just to make me suffer. And you threw all of that away because some stranger told you what you wanted to hear, what I wanted to hear, that I'm the villain, that you're the victim, that this marriage is still just captivity." Lorenzo's eyes bored into hers. "You want to believe I'm using you because it's easier than admitting what's really happening between us. And what's really happening? You're falling in love with me, and it terrifies you." His hand came up, gripping her chin gently but firmly. "So when someone offered you an excuse to pull away, to rebuild your walls, you took it, even if it meant risking your life." Nadia wanted to deny it. Couldn't. "I'm not using you as bait," Lorenzo continued, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. "I'm protecting you the only way I know how. By keeping you close, keeping you visible as mine, making it clear that anyone who touches you answers to me personally. Yes, that makes you a target. But the alternative, hiding you away, pretending you don't matter, that makes you vulnerable in different ways." He released her chin, stepped back. "But clearly, I've failed to make you understand the danger. So we're changing the rules." "What does that mean?" "It means no more studio trips without full security sweep. It means Marco and 2 other guards whenever you leave this property. It means I have access to every communication device you own." His tone was implacable. "You want to be treated like a partner? Then act like one. Partners don't go behind each other's backs. Partners trust each other. You want to talk about trust?" Nadia's anger finally broke through. "You keep me in the dark about your business. You make decisions without consulting me. You control every aspect of my life. To keep you alive." The words echoed in the office. Lorenzo ran a hand through his hair, visibly trying to control his temper. "You want honesty?" he said finally. "Fine. Yes, my world is dangerous. Yes, there are people who would use you to hurt me, but I'm not using you as bait. I'm trying to give you as much freedom as possible while keeping you breathing." He moved closer. "And yes, I'm falling in love with you, which makes you both my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. Which is why tonight when Marco called and said you were missing, I nearly lost my mind." The confession hung between them. "You love me?" Nadia whispered. "I'm trying not to. It's a liability in my world. But yes." His hand came up to touch her face gently. "Which is why what you did tonight hurt more than any betrayal from an enemy could. Because it means you still don't trust me. I do trust you. I just needed an excuse to doubt. I know." Lorenzo's thumb brushed her lips. "But no more excuses, Nadia. We're in this together now, really together. Which means you follow the rules, not because I'm controlling you, but because they keep you alive. And if I can't, then I lock you in this house and throw away the key." His tone said he'd do it. "Your choice. Partnership with security measures, or captivity with complete restriction." Nadia thought about it, about how far she'd come from that first terrified meeting in the restaurant, about how this man had kept every promise he'd made, about how she'd been looking for an excuse to pull away because intimacy scared her more than danger did. "Partnership," she said quietly, "with security measures. And honesty. Full honesty." "Agreed." Lorenzo pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. "But you scared the hell out of me tonight. Don't do it again." "I won't." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other, rebuilding trust that had cracked but not shattered. "The envelope," Nadia said against his chest. "What was in it?" "Nothing. Blank papers. Just bait to get you to the meeting." Lorenzo's voice was grim. "But now they know you'll break protocol. They'll try again. So what do? We get smarter, stronger, more careful." He pulled back to look at her face. "And we trust each other. Completely. No more doubts. No more doubts. Nadia agreed, and she meant it. 3 months into the marriage, Nadia had almost forgotten what her old life felt like. She woke up in Lorenzo's arms most mornings, worked in her Chelsea studio 3 days a week with Marco and 2 other guards rotating shifts, attended dinners and galas where she played the role of Mrs. DeLuca with increasing ease, came home to expensive wine and conversations that ranged from art to philosophy to the careful dance around Lorenzo's darker business dealings. It should have felt like captivity. Instead, it felt like life. Her art was changing too. The pieces she created now held complexity she'd never achieved before, exploring themes of consent and choice, of chains that became bridges, of captivity transforming into partnership. Her gallery director called the new work breakthrough material and scheduled a show for 3 months out. Lorenzo attended every planning meeting, proud and supportive in ways that made Nadia's chest ache. "You're getting everything you wanted," her friend Jasmine said during one of their rare phone calls. Nadia had reconnected with a few friends, carefully, with Lorenzo's approval. Successful marriage, thriving career, financial security. "I know," Nadia replied, watching Lorenzo through the office window as he spoke with Marco. "It's just not how I imagined getting it." "Does it matter?" "You're happy, was she?" Nadia thought about it. About Lorenzo's hand at her back during public events. About his patience when she woke with nightmares about the meeting with that stranger. About the way he listened when she talked about her art, really listened, asking questions that showed he understood what she was trying to create. "Yeah," she admitted. "I think I am." But happiness made her vulnerable. And vulnerability in Lorenzo's world was dangerous. The attack came on a Tuesday afternoon. Nadia was at the studio, working on a large canvas for the upcoming show. Marco was downstairs as usual. 2 other guards, Anthony and James, were positioned outside the building. Standard security protocol. She was mixing paints, lost in the creative process, when her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Look out the window." Nadia's blood went cold. She moved to the window carefully, looked down at the street below. A man stood across the street, phone in hand, looking directly up at her. Her panic button was across the room. She started moving toward it when her phone rang. "Don't call for help," the same voice from before said. "Or the device on the 3rd floor detonates and kills everyone in the building. You're bluffing." "Am I?" "Check the stairwell. 3rd floor, southwest corner. Small black box. That's C4, Mrs. DeLuca. Enough to bring down this whole structure." Nadia's hands shook. "What do you want?" "You. Downstairs, alone. 5 minutes. Marco will never let me leave. Then everyone dies. Your choice." The line went dead. This was it. The real attack. The one Lorenzo had been preparing her for. Nadia's training kicked in before conscious thought. She texted Lorenzo. "Code red. Chelsea building. They have explosives." Then she headed for the door. Marco looked up from his post as she descended the stairs. "Mrs. DeLuca, everything okay?" "I need air. Just stepping outside." "Not without me. Marco." Nadia forced her voice to stay calm. "There's a device on the 3rd floor. Southwest corner. They said if anyone comes with me, they'll detonate." Marco's face went hard. He immediately radioed the other guards, speaking in rapid code. "Mrs. DeLuca, you don't go out there. We evacuate." "And they blow the building anyway, killing everyone inside." Nadia pulled out her phone, showed him the text. "I have to go. You know I do. Mr. DeLuca will kill me." "Mr. DeLuca will understand." She touched Marco's arm. "Get everyone out. Then follow me. Just give me a head start." She didn't wait for permission. Walked out the building entrance, into the street, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The man from the cafe was waiting. 2 others flanked him, big, armed, dangerous. "Mrs. DeLuca, good decision." He gestured to a car parked at the curb. "Get in." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere your husband will come looking for you. That's the point." He smiled coldly. "He thinks he can protect you. We're going to prove otherwise." Nadia climbed into the car, knowing Marco was already calling Lorenzo, knowing backup was coming, but knowing and surviving the interim were very different things. They drove for 20 minutes, through Manhattan into Brooklyn, into an industrial area she didn't recognize. The building they stopped at was abandoned, windows broken, graffiti covering the walls. Inside was worse: concrete floors, exposed pipes, the smell of rust and decay. They pushed Nadia into a room and zip-tied her to a chair. "He'll come for you," the leader said. And when he does, we'll be ready. Left alone, Nadia tested the zip ties. Too tight. No give. She looked around the room, one door, no windows, camera in the corner watching her. This was the trap Lorenzo had warned her about. She was the bait, and he would walk into it to save her. She couldn't let that happen. Lorenzo received Nadia's text while in a meeting with a potential business partner. Code red. Chelsea building. They have explosives. His blood turned to ice. He was moving before conscious thought. Phone to his ear, calling Marco. Talk to me. They took her, sir. Marco's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. Claimed to have C4 in the building. Bomb squad is here now, but she walked out to protect everyone else. Location? Tracking her phone now. Looks like Brooklyn. Industrial district. Lorenzo was already in his car, 3 of his best men piling in behind him. Send me the coordinates. And Marco? Sir? If she dies because you let her walk out, you die next. Understood, sir. The drive to Brooklyn took 16 minutes. Longest 16 minutes of Lorenzo's life. His mind was racing, calculating, preparing for every possible scenario. They'd taken Nadia to draw him out. This was the play he'd been anticipating, preparing for. His enemies wanted him vulnerable, wanted to use her to destroy him. The building Marco directed them to was perfect for an ambush abandoned. Multiple entry points, plenty of places to hide shooters. This is a trap, Giovanni said from the passenger seat. They want you to go in there. I know. And you're going anyway. She's my wife. Lorenzo checked his weapon, loaded extra ammunition. I don't leave her to die. Sir, we should call in more men. Surround the building. No time. They'll kill her if they think we're organizing an assault. Lorenzo's voice was cold, controlled, deadly. We go in fast. We get her out. Anyone who gets in our way dies. They approached the building from multiple angles. Lorenzo took the main entrance with Giovanni, while his other men covered the exits. The interior was exactly what Lorenzo expected: concrete and decay, and the overwhelming smell of trap. But he moved forward anyway, weapon up, every sense on high alert. He found Nadia in a room on the 2nd floor. She was zip-tied to a chair, bruise forming on her cheek, but alive. Her eyes widened when she saw him. It's a trap, she said immediately. They're waiting. I know. Lorenzo moved to cut her free. Doesn't matter. It does matter. You walked right into what they wanted. You think I don't know that? Lorenzo's hands were gentle despite his harsh tone as he freed her wrists. You think I don't know I'm being predictable? But I'm not leaving you, Nadia. That's the choice I made when I married you. Before Nadia could respond, gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Lorenzo pushed Nadia behind him, returning fire with lethal precision. Giovanni appeared in the doorway, taking out one attacker, then another. Exits compromised, Giovanni shouted. We're pinned. Lorenzo assessed their options in seconds. Window. Fire escape. Move. He grabbed Nadia, half carrying her to the broken window. Glass crunched under their feet. Bullets tore through the air where they'd been standing seconds before. The fire escape was rusty, treacherous, but Lorenzo didn't hesitate. He pushed Nadia ahead of him, his body shielding hers as they descended. They were 2 floors down when the explosion hit. The force threw them forward. Lorenzo twisted mid-fall, taking the impact on his back, protecting Nadia with his body. They hit the ground hard, his head cracking against concrete. Everything went fuzzy. Through the haze, Lorenzo heard Nadia's voice. Stay with me. Lorenzo, stay with me. His men appeared Giovanni, pulling them both to their feet, supporting Lorenzo's weight, dragging them to the car as more gunfire erupted from the building. They made it to the vehicle. Doors slammed. Tires squealed as they pulled away from the burning building. Lorenzo's vision cleared slowly. He was in the back seat, Nadia's hands on his face, tears streaming down her cheeks. You're bleeding, she said. Your head. I'm fine. His voice came out rough. Are you hurt? No. You protected me. Her hands were shaking as she examined him. You stupid, stupid man. You walked into a trap for me. Of course I did. Lorenzo's hand came up to touch her face, wipe away her tears. You're my wife. What did you think I would do? I thought, her voice broke. I thought you'd be smart, use strategy, not just charge in. Strategy went out the window the moment they took you. Lorenzo pulled her closer despite Giovanni's presence, despite his men seeing. Don't you understand yet, Nadia? I love you. Completely. Terrifyingly. I would burn my entire empire to the ground before I let them hurt you. She kissed him, then desperate, grateful, scared. He kissed back, tasting salt from her tears and copper from his own blood. "We need to get you to a doctor," Giovanni said flatly. "Sir, your head. I'm fine. You're concussed. And possibly have a skull fracture." Lorenzo ignored him, his eyes on Nadia. "I'm fine as long as she's safe." At the house, a private doctor examined Lorenzo while Nadia hovered anxiously. Concussion, definitely. Possible hairline fracture. Contusions, lacerations, nothing that wouldn't heal. The doctor ordered rest, observation, no stress. Lorenzo laughed at that. "I run a criminal empire. Stress is the job description." After the doctor left, Nadia helped Lorenzo to bed. He moved stiffly, pain obvious despite his attempts to hide it. "You scared me," she said quietly, helping him out of his ruined shirt. "You scared me first." Lorenzo's hand caught hers. "Walking out of that building to protect others. That was brave and stupid in equal measure. I learned from the best." They lay in bed together, Nadia careful not to jar his injuries. Lorenzo's arm wrapped around her anyway, holding her close. "I told you I love you," he said into the darkness. "In the car. Do you remember?" "I remember. And?" Nadia was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I love you too?" "I've been fighting it for months, but I do. I love you, Lorenzo, even though you're dangerous and controlling and you forced me into this marriage. I love you anyway." His arms tightened around her. "Say it again. I love you. Again. I love you, you stubborn, reckless man." She tilted her head to look at him. "But if you ever do something that stupid again, I'll do it every time. That's who I am." His gray eyes met hers. "You're my line, Nadia. The thing I won't cross. I'll sacrifice everything else, but not you." She kissed him gently, mindful of his injuries. "Then I guess we're both stupid." "Probably." His hand tangled in her hair. "But we're stupid together. That counts for something." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, bruised and exhausted and more connected than ever before. The attack had been meant to destroy them. Instead, it had proven what they both already knew. This forced marriage had become something real, something worth fighting for, something worth dying for, and in Lorenzo's world, that made it both their greatest strength and their greatest vulnerability. Lorenzo was under house arrest for 3 days, doctor's orders, enforced by Nadia's threats and Rosa's determination. "You move from that bed and I'll tie you to it," Nadia had said the morning after the attack. "Promises, promises," Lorenzo replied, earning him a glare and strict orders to rest. The forced stillness gave them time to talk, really talk, in ways they hadn't before. On the second day, propped up in bed with ice on his head, and Nadia sitting cross-legged beside him, Lorenzo told her the truth. "I didn't choose you randomly," he began, Nadia's hand stilled on his. "What do you mean?" "The Morrison Gallery. Your show. I told you I saw it. Stood there for 20 minutes. He paused. "I lied. I was there for 2 hours. Came back 3 more times that week. Lorenzo." "Let me finish." His gray eyes met hers. "I bought one of your paintings that day. Breaking Free, the one about generational trauma. Hung it in my private study where no one else sees it. And for a year after that, I followed your career. Not stalking," he added quickly. "Just aware. Reading reviews of your shows. Seeing where you were exhibiting. Knowing who you were." Nadia processed this. "So when Terrence's debt came across your desk, I saw an opportunity." Lorenzo's voice held shame and honesty in equal measure. "I'm not proud of that. I engineered this situation because I wanted you, and I'm ruthless enough to take what I want. But I've spent every day since trying to earn what I took by force. Why are you telling me this now? Because I almost lost you 2 days ago. And I can't build a real marriage on lies of omission." His hand found hers, squeezed gently. "You deserve the full truth, even if it makes you hate me." Nadia was quiet for a long time, processing. Lorenzo had planned this, deliberately chosen her, manipulated circumstances to get what he wanted. She should be furious, should feel violated all over again. Instead, she felt oddly relieved, because it meant this wasn't random. Meant he'd chosen her specifically, deliberately, for reasons beyond convenience. "I don't hate you," she said finally. "You should." "Probably." She shifted closer, careful of his injuries. "But somewhere in these months, I stopped seeing you as the man who forced me into marriage, started seeing you as the man who keeps his promises, who protects me, who looks at my art like it matters. It does matter. You matter. Lorenzo's hand came up to touch her face. More than anything I've built, any empire I control, you matter most. That's terrifying. I know, for both of us. His thumb brushed her cheek. But I'm not letting you go, Nadia. I forced you into this marriage. Yes, but I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you choose to stay. What if I told you I've already chosen to stay? Something in Lorenzo's expression cracked vulnerability, breaking through the control he usually maintained. Then I'd say I don't deserve you, but I'll take you anyway, because I'm selfish like that. She kissed him then, gentle and deep and full of promise. When she pulled back, his eyes were darker, hungrier. Doctor said no stress, she reminded him. To hell with the doctor. He pulled her down, and Nadia laughed against his mouth, careful not to jar his head, mindful of his bruised ribs. They made love slowly, tenderly, with the kind of care that spoke of genuine feeling rather than just desire. Afterward, wrapped in expensive sheets, Nadia drew patterns on Lorenzo's chest and thought about how far they'd come from that first terrified meeting in the restaurant. I want to see it, she said quietly. See what? The painting you bought. Breaking free. Lorenzo hesitated, then nodded. Tomorrow, when I'm cleared to move without Rosa threatening me. The next day, he took her to his private study, a room she'd never been allowed in before. Smaller than his main office, more personal. Books everywhere, papers scattered, photos on the desk of people Nadia didn't recognize. My first wife, Lorenzo said, seeing where her eyes had gone. Sophia. And our daughter, Isabella. Nadia's heart stopped. Daughter? I didn't know you had. She died with her mother. Car accident. Sophia was driving Isabella to school. Lorenzo's voice went flat, emotionless in the way of old grief. Drunk driver ran a red light. They were both gone before I reached the hospital. Lorenzo, Nadia touched his arm. I'm so sorry. It's why I was so reckless 2 days ago. Why I'll always be reckless when it comes to you. He looked at her, and his eyes held old pain. I've lost a wife and child before. I won't survive losing you too. The weight of that admission settled over them. This wasn't just about love. This was about trauma, about a man who'd built walls so high he could survive anything until Nadia had broken through them. You won't lose me, she promised. I'm tougher than I look. I know. He kissed her forehead. It's one of the things I love about you. He led her to the far wall, pulled back a curtain she'd thought was just decoration. Behind it hung her painting, Breaking Free. The woman in chains, pulling them apart, transforming constraint into liberation. You really did buy it, Nadia breathed. Told you I don't lie. Lorenzo stood beside her, both of them studying the piece. This painting changed something for me, made me realize I'd been in chains too, self-imposed ones. Grief and control and the belief that feeling anything was weakness. He turned to her. Then you walked into that restaurant, terrified and defiant and absolutely refusing to break. And I thought if I could have this woman, this strength, this fire, maybe I could learn to break free too. Nadia's eyes burned with tears. That's not fair. What's not fair? You can't say things like that and expect me to maintain any emotional distance. She turned into his arms. You're making it impossible not to love you completely. Good. That's the goal. Lorenzo held her tight. I forced you into this marriage because I'm selfish. I'm keeping you in it by being the man you choose to stay with. That's the difference. They stood like that for a long time, in front of the painting that had started everything, in the private space where Lorenzo kept the things that mattered most, and Nadia realized she'd become one of those things, not property, not possession, but something he treasured enough to protect, to risk everything for, to love in the complicated, damaged way he was capable of loving. It wasn't the fairy tale she'd imagined as a girl. It was better. It was real. 6 months after the attack, Nadia's gallery show opened to critical acclaim. Evolution of Captivity was everything she'd been working toward. 14 large pieces, exploring themes of consent, choice, constraint, and transformation. The centerpiece was a massive canvas titled, When Chains Become Bridges. A woman and man holding hands, the chains between them transformed into a golden bridge they were building together. Lorenzo stood beside her at the opening, his hand at the small of her back, pride evident in every line of his body. You did it, he murmured as critics and collectors circled the pieces, discussions intense and appreciative. We did it, Nadia corrected. None of this happens without you giving me the space to create. All I did was provide the studio. The art is yours. The inspiration was mutual. They'd fallen into an easy partnership over the past months. Lorenzo had scaled back some of his more dangerous operations, not abandoning his empire, but shifting focus to legitimate businesses that didn't risk his life or Nadia's. She'd embraced her role as Mrs. De Luca, learning to navigate his world with grace and strength. They were happy, complicatedly, messily, genuinely happy. The gallery director approached them, glowing. Nadia, the reviews are already coming in. The Times called it a powerful examination of power dynamics and emotional transformation. 3 pieces have already sold. Which ones? The early pieces, the ones about captivity. Collectors love the rawness. The director hesitated. Though if you're willing to sell the final piece, when chains become bridges, I have someone offering 6 figures. It's not for sale, Lorenzo said immediately. It's not? Nadia looked at him, surprised. That one's mine. I'm buying it the moment this show closes. His eyes met hers. Because it's 1:05 a.m. And I want it hanging where I can see it every day. You're going to pay 6 figures for my art? I'd pay 7, 8, whatever it takes. Lorenzo's smile was soft, genuine. Besides, consider it an investment. Your value as an artist is only going to increase. Later, after the crowds had thinned and they were driving back to Connecticut, Nadia thought about how much had changed since that first terrified ride to meet Lorenzo. Do you regret it? She asked quietly. Forcing me into this? Lorenzo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I regret the force. I regret your fear. I regret that you didn't have real choice. He glanced at her. But I don't regret that you're my wife. I can't regret the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it started wrong. Maybe especially because it started wrong. We had to fight for this. Build it from nothing. That makes it stronger than something that came easy. Back at the house, Rosa had left champagne and dessert in their room. They changed into comfortable clothes, sat on the bed with crystal glasses and chocolate-covered strawberries. I have something for you, Lorenzo said, pulling a small box from his nightstand. It's not my birthday. It's our 6-month anniversary, since the wedding. He handed her the box. Open it. Inside was a key. Simple, brass, old-looking. What's this? Key to the Amalfi Coast Villa. I bought it last month. Put it in your name only. Lorenzo's eyes were serious. It's yours, Nadia. Completely yours. If you ever need to leave, if I ever become what I promised not to be, you have a place that's safe, that I can't take from you. Nadia stared at the key, understanding the magnitude of what he was giving her. Real power, real choice, a way out if she ever needed it. This is in case you hurt me, she said quietly. This is in case I ever stop being worthy of you. Lorenzo's hand covered hers. I love you. I want you to stay. But I want you to stay because you choose to, not because you have nowhere else to go. Nadia set down the key, cupped Lorenzo's face in her hands. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. You're my home. Whatever this started as, it's real now. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She kissed him softly. I love you, Lorenzo De Luca. Not because you force me to, because I choose to. His arms came around her, holding her like she was precious. Irreplaceable. Then we're doing this. Really doing this. Building a life together. We already are. They made love that night with the champagne forgotten, the key sitting on the nightstand as a promise and a choice. And afterward, tangled together in the darkness, Lorenzo whispered something that made Nadia's heart expand. I want a family with you. Children. A future that's not just about survival but about living. I want that too, Nadia admitted. Eventually. When we're ready. No rush. We have time. Lorenzo's hand found hers, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. We have the rest of our lives. 1 year later, Nadia stood in the bathroom of their Connecticut home, staring at a positive pregnancy test. She hadn't planned this. They'd been careful. Most of the time. But clearly not careful enough. Or maybe the universe had other plans. Terror and joy warred in her chest. A baby. Lorenzo's baby. Proof that this marriage had become something real. Something permanent. She found him in his study, working through paperwork. When he looked up and saw her face, he immediately stood. What's wrong? Nadia held out the test wordlessly. Lorenzo stared at it for a long moment. Then his eyes met hers, and she saw wonder mixed with fear, mixed with something that looked like joy. You're pregnant, he said, like he needed to confirm it. Yeah. Are you How do you feel about that? Nadia thought about it honestly. Terrified. Happy. Overwhelmed. She moved closer to him. But mostly sure. This is right. We're ready for this. Lorenzo pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. A child. Our child. Are you happy? I'm terrified too. After Isabella. His voice broke. But yes, I'm happy. Incredibly, unexpectedly happy. They told family first. Nadia's mother cried happy tears, finally believing that her daughter had found genuine happiness. Terrence, now clean and working steadily in Philadelphia, hugged Nadia and whispered another apology she no longer needed. Lorenzo's staff celebrated quietly, professionally. Rosa fussed immediately, talking about preparing nurseries and dietary needs and everything a pregnant woman required. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Lorenzo became almost obsessively protective, hiring additional security, limiting Nadia's exposure to any stress, attending every doctor's appointment. You're going to drive me crazy, Nadia told him when he refused to let her paint with certain chemicals. I already am crazy. About you. About this baby. His hand rested on her growing stomach. I lost a child before. I won't lose this one through negligence. His fear was understandable. Nadia let him fuss, let him protect, because she understood it came from love and old trauma. Her second gallery show opened when she was 6 months pregnant, belly prominent, glowing with life and creativity. The pieces were about transformation and growth, about the art of becoming someone new while honoring who you'd been. Becoming was the title. And every piece sold within an hour. Their daughter was born on a spring evening, her cries filling the hospital room with life and hope. Lorenzo held her with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face as he counted her tiny fingers and marveled at her perfect features. She's beautiful, he whispered, looking at Nadia with absolute wonder. You're both beautiful. They named her Sophia Maria after the grandmother who'd given Nadia her gold hoops and Lorenzo's first wife who he'd loved and lost. A bridge between past and present, honoring what came before while building something new. Lorenzo was a devoted father present in ways that shocked his associates and delighted Rosa. He scaled back his operations further, delegating more, prioritizing family over empire. I built everything I have, he told Nadia one night, watching Sophia sleep in her bassinet. But nothing I've built matters as much as the two of you. 2 years later, they stood at the Amalfi Coast villa, the one Lorenzo had given Nadia, watching Sophia play in the garden, while Nadia's second pregnancy made movement uncomfortable. We're having a boy this time, Lorenzo said, his hand on her stomach. The doctor said they couldn't tell yet. I know. Father's intuition. He kissed her temple. Boy or girl, doesn't matter, as long as you're both healthy. Nadia leaned into him, watching their daughter chase butterflies, feeling the life growing inside her, looking at the villa that represented her freedom and her choice to stay. Do you ever regret it? She asked. The way we started? Every day, Lorenzo admitted. I regret the force, the fear, the lack of choice. I'll spend my whole life making up for that. You already have. No. I just got better at being the man you deserved from the beginning. He turned her to face him. But I'll never regret that you're my wife, that we built this life, that I get to wake up next to you every morning and know you chose to stay. I choose you every day, Nadia said, touching his face. Not because I'm trapped. Because you're mine and I'm yours, and that's how we work. Their son was born that fall, healthy, loud, perfect. They named him Marco, after the guard who'd protected Nadia and become a trusted friend. The family photos that appeared in glossy magazines showed what looked like perfect happiness. Powerful husband, artistic wife, 2 beautiful children, wealth and success, and traditional family values. What the photos didn't show was the complicated truth underneath. A marriage that started in coercion and became real love. A man who'd forced a choice and spent years earning genuine devotion. A woman who'd been trapped and found freedom by choosing to stay. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was messier, darker, more complicated than that. It was real. It was theirs. And it was enough. 5 years after the wedding, Lorenzo and Nadia renewed their vows in a small, private ceremony. This time, Nadia chose everything: the venue, the guests, the words she spoke. This time, she walked down the aisle carrying Sophia's hand, Marco's wife holding their son, choosing to recommit, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. When Lorenzo saw her coming toward him, his eyes held the same wonder as that first wedding day. But this time, there was no coercion behind it, just love. I, Nadia Bennett DeLuca, she said, her voice strong and certain. Choose you, Lorenzo. Choose this life we've built. Choose to transform what started as captivity into partnership. Choose to love you freely, completely, for the rest of our lives. Lorenzo's voice was thick with emotion when he responded. I, Lorenzo DeLuca, promise to spend every day earning the choice you just made. To be worthy of your love, your trust, your forgiveness. To be the husband you deserve, the father our children need, the partner who lifts you up instead of holding you back. They kissed as husband and wife, truly this time, no shadows of force or fear between them. And later, at the reception held at their Connecticut home, Nadia stood with her grandmother's gold hoops in her ears, and Lorenzo's arm around her waist, watching their children play, surrounded by genuine friends and family. Thank you, she whispered to Lorenzo. For what? For keeping your promises. For being patient. For loving me enough to let me choose. Thank you for choosing me, even after everything. Lorenzo kissed her softly, especially after everything. The fairy tale said the prince rescued the princess, and they lived happily ever after. The truth was messier. The prince was a mafia boss who'd forced the princess into marriage. The princess was an artist who'd been trapped but found strength. And happy ever after was something they'd had to build day by day, choice by choice, from the ruins of how they'd started. But it was real. It was theirs. And in the end, that made it more valuable than any fairy tale could ever be. 10 years after that first terrified meeting in the restaurant, Nadia Bennett DeLuca stood in her Chelsea studio, putting the finishing touches on a painting that would be the centerpiece of her retrospective show. The piece showed two figures, a man and a woman, clearly her and Lorenzo standing on opposite sides of a bridge made of golden chains. They were reaching toward each other, the chains between them no longer restraints, but the very structure that allowed them to connect. Title: The Art of Choosing. Lorenzo appeared in the doorway, silver hair catching the afternoon light, still handsome, still dangerous, still completely devoted to the woman who'd transformed his life. Is it finished? He asked. Almost. Nadia stepped back, studying her work. What do you think? Lorenzo moved beside her, his arm wrapping around her waist in the comfortable intimacy of a decade together. I think it's honest, beautiful and complicated and true. Like us. Like us. He kissed the top of her head. The kids want to know if you're coming home for dinner. Tell them yes. I just need to finish this one part. After Lorenzo left, Nadia added the final detail in tiny script along the bottom of the canvas, visible only if you looked closely. Sometimes the worst beginning leads to the most unexpected happiness. Sometimes chains become wings. Sometimes captivity transforms into choice. This is our truth. Complicated, messy, real. She signed it with her full name, Nadia Bennett DeLuca, not because Lorenzo forced her to take his name, but because she'd chosen it, chosen him, chosen this life they'd built from impossible circumstances. And that choice, made freely after years of earning it, meant everything. If this story of unexpected love, dangerous devotion, and transformation touched your heart, please leave a comment below. Tell me what moment resonated with you most. Would you have made Nadia's choice? Do you believe love can grow from forced beginnings? Could you forgive what Lorenzo did? Subscribe to my channel for more intense mafia romance stories where powerful men meet their match, and love conquers even the darkest circumstances. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a tale of passion, danger, and the complicated journey from captivity to choice. Thank you for joining Nadia and Lorenzo's journey, for believing that even the most impossible situations can transform into something real and beautiful, for understanding that happy endings don't always come easy. Sometimes they have to be built, brick by brick, choice by choice, from the ruins of terrible beginnings. Your support means everything. Drop a like if you want more stories like this. Share this with someone who loves dark romance with redemption arcs. And tell me in the comments what story should I tell next. Until next time, keep believing in the transformative power of choice, the strength of complicated love, and the truth that sometimes the best endings come from the worst beginnings.